All right, good morning and I guess afternoon. Morning for Jonathan, afternoon for us. On this June 15th, we're a day late than our normal Monday time slot, but traveling back from a nutty Chicago NOOD. And it's good to be back in Newport. Sun is shining again. So, Gary, where have you been? You've been sort of absent for a little while.
Yeah, sorry to miss a couple here, but I'm back in action. And I was up at the Little Lego Harbor Yacht Club this weekend for the E-Scow Nationals. 56 boats made the trip. Young 20-year-old Harry Melgas IV ended up winning the regatta. It was fascinating. We had 3 days, suffered through a northeaster, a rainy, miserable first day, and a strong northeaster with clearing skies the second day, and then a southerly came in and challenged everybody with a different format on the third day. But it reminded me what a cool boat the E-Scow class is. It's in its 98th year, and these boats are still out there racing, and the sailors are good. Clay Johnson and Vince Porter, who were both All-Americans at Harvard. Sorry, Jonathan. But they were right in the hunt in the top 5. And Erica Reinecke was out sailing on one of the boats, and I think Annie Hager was out sailing too. So it was very kind of, and a lot of young people in this regatta. So,
Gary,
excellent.
what do you think? I agree. The E-Scow is definitely one of the iconic one designs, and clearly one of the healthiest one designs in America today. What do you attribute that to?
So just a brief overview. What the E-Scow class did that's so special is they allow changes. So Jonathan, if you had an idea of a new rudder or an asymmetrical spinnaker or a new boom bang or something, you would ask the class, I would like to sail with this. And they would say, yes, on an experimental basis. Your scores might help. But if it actually works, you go back to the class and you say, we should do this. And there's quite a robust process and debate, and it takes at least a year, maybe 2. But the cool thing is the class has updated itself over the years with good innovations, and that's kept the boat modern and relevant. And then you have a good manufacturer. Melgas Boat Works is very careful in the construction of these boats to make sure that they're one design. It's generally a family boat. You look on yacht scoring at all the results in the cruise, and it's just astounding to me how many people have the same last names on these boats. So it's a family boat that's very competitive, that stood the test of time, and it's no accident that it's survived for 98 years.
And how was the racing up there?
Good. Very windy on the first day. The second day, not as windy, but good. I did not race. I watched with John Porter, who's a past national champion, and his son Vincent and his brother Brian were in the regatta. Both ended up top 6 or so. So it was fun kind of getting to know John Porter a little bit. Very smart guy with a lot of history and talent. And so it was great fun. And then the final day was a southeaster, which was lighter. And they had an inside out race, which was interesting. On the first leeward leg, the leaders all came around to mark to port, the gate, and offset mark, and took off on starboard. And then the second pack, from like 15th to 25th, they all came around. They're behind, they jibed. Well, this new wave of wind came in from the left, and those 10 or 15 boats from the left squashed down and ended up in the lead, leaving the leaders back 15th to 30th, all in 1.2 miles. It was fascinating to watch.
They saw it coming.
Well, yeah, they were behind. They had no choice. And the new wind's coming across, and bingo, this looks good.
Liking this move, yeah. Well, Jonathan, you had one of the porters with you on the Natalie J this weekend, right?
Yep. Brian Porter Jr. is a great up and coming sailor, and really nice person. And the whole Porter family has got a great tradition of sailing. They're not only great sailors, but they're great supporters of the sport, have a really good attitude about, what it means to sail with your family, and just the poise of sailing in a life.
Yeah, well, it's cool. I mean, you're on the family boat with the O'Neills, and that was neat to have a father-son combination going there. That was cool to see.
Yeah, it's great. That's another great long-running family program.
Like tight. Well, Ed, you joined us while we started Gavin, and so welcome. It's good to see you again in Chicago as well. You guys didn't quite pull off the win, but those Fox guys, they're slippery, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I apologize for being late today, and I
No
appreciate you
problem.
letting me in. We had a great week in Chicago. It was really good to be back racing at that level in the U.S. here with the big boats and so many people out. And of course, while we were there, Chicago opened up completely, and so it was interesting to experience the mass of humanity that just came out of all the apartment buildings, suddenly. But no, good racing. The only thing that I'm really, we had a good weekend. The only thing I'm really disappointed about is that Jonathan beat us in the last race.
Yeah, well, that looked like it was going pretty wonky, pretty fast when we motored past you guys. But was it? Did you get stuck out on the right and they went left? Was that?
Actually, it was the Vesper that got around us. I mistakenly remembered that wrong, but
yeah, I'll take the false credit though, because basically Ed kicked my ass.
No, not
repeatedly last week.
we had good racing. It's not boat for boat racing in that class now in the U.S. Each boat has its own unique rating and and has its own set of conditions that it does better in. And certainly the Fox is a newer boat. It's the newest boat, and it's built for the rule, and it's well sailed, and they did a good job. And we had a lot of close races, but they were always strong. So I think the rest of us have our work cut out to try and figure out how to get around those guys as we go through the season. But one of the really nice things about the week was that we got all the owners and tacticians and a couple of trimmers together each morning, and had a group debrief about from the whole fleet standpoint, and looked through the starts and a little bit about some sail trim, and talked about how the different teams were setting up for the day and from yesterday and so forth. And it was really a nice, not only learning opportunity, but a great social opportunity for the groups to get together. And I think that type of thing really helps to make the class strong for the future.
Yeah, as we were bouncing around, it seemed to me the couple of starts that we watched that the Fox was always at full pace, or at least the ones that we saw. And did you feel like they had in general, from your debriefs, the better starts through the weekend?
They had a couple of they had one that was pretty disastrous, and they had a couple that were a little more compromised. But they are the most powerful boat in the fleet in terms of just raw boat speed and power. Yeah. So it's one of those things where they can just sneak out a little bit easier into the front line, and then once they're there, they start to just beat up the people behind. So you have to.
Ed was the main recipient of their beating up. I mean, it's an interesting situation because it is handicap racing, and they are slightly faster, both rating wise and in pure speed. So, and they sail their boat well enough that they're able to parlay that tiny speed advantage into a strategic advantage, versus their main rival, which is the WinQuest.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of smart people on the boat that are used to doing that sort of thing. So, and that's how they've positioned themselves. And for all of the world of handicap racing, all those people in the middle of their class grouping are well aware that one boat that's a little quicker can get out there and do a lot of damage early on, especially on upwind starts. And you gotta take that into consideration when you're making your strategy for the day.
Yeah. Well, we put up a couple of videos. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was one on the final day of it was in that final light air race, I think, where the Fox Bowman, his name's Harry West, but it was awesome to see. I mean, you guys see this all the time, but some pretty cool technique, and just I've never seen anybody get a jib down so fast. I mean, like I said, you guys see this all the time, but it was cool. It was cool to watch the boat handling stuff that you guys.
It's interesting because one of the techniques that the bowmen have to learn on those boats is the, you know, as you come into the weather mark, you pre-release your jib halyard so that as you bear away, it just falls down.
Yeah.
As soon as you take it, as soon as the pitman releases it, the line, the sail just falls down. So the bowmen have to use their hands to put a little brake on. And sometimes that gets a little hot on the fingertips, and so you just let go and it comes smoking down, you know.
Yeah.
But it does come down pretty quick when it's done right.
Yeah, I love the sort of the leg over and just sort of pinning the foot against the forestay, and then the other, if you see, as soon as the thing pops, his leg just flies over there. It was pretty cool. Anyway, yeah. So I think the other techniques, I might as well share this one video here. This was down the fleet below you guys. Nope, that's not the one we want. That was, maybe we show that one later. Let's see. But so this boat named Slapshot. This was going into a finish, I think, of a couple of them, some mixed boats. And see, he's got the hockey stick off the back of the transom there, right? And a little confusion going on. So let's see how this one plays out. This is going into the finish.
Yeah, I think the hockey stick was their ensign mast.
Yeah. And a little late turn down here, and snap, off it goes. There you go. Highlight of the weekends, yeah.
But it got a little sooner.
I know, yeah. It wasn't even his class anyway. It's the comedy, but the Tartan 10 fleet is it is really actually we sort of we're joking that it was hysterical to watch the slow motion racing, but those things, talk about tight racing. Still, both that are just years separated apart, and the inches of which they go around the marks together is pretty wild. Yeah. But yeah, they got the Chicago NOOD. We did note in the award ceremony that it set a record that there were only 5 protests the entire weekend. Normally Chicago, that board is like, you know, they have to set up another board, and that's crazy. But anyway, yeah, it was nice to see, you know, minimal protests, lots of racing, and the parties felt like absolutely normal. And then, as you mentioned, on Saturday night when the Chicago turned off the switch, it was mayhem in the streets of Chicago. But
yep, hard to find a place to get a bite to eat that night.
Yeah, yeah.
No, good fun, and boy, again, the racing on our course was fantastic. We used the robotic marks like the J70s have been doing over the winter, and only had one little incident where one of the marks tried to hunt us down as we rounded it.
Oh, yeah.
We were just bearing away at the top mark, and one of the robot marks decided it was time to move upwind just a little bit, so that was exciting. But they worked really well and made the race committee's job easy, and we didn't have any protests. We had more situations and incidents in our practice racing the couple days before than we did during the actual racing, which I guess is pretty normal. But when I first came in and listened, you guys were talking about various different families in the different classes, the E-Scows and the sailing with Jonathan. My son Nick was up there sailing in a J111, and my other son Ty was in Newport sailing on a J122, and of course I was on the WindQuest with 2 generations of the DeVosses, and it really is a great time in the sport to see all these different families being able to race together and even against each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, I did observe, and maybe it's just, it was a random observation in Chicago, the number of women on the boat, both, on the bow trimming, a lot of kite trimmers and even drivers too. So that was kind of, I don't know if that's unique to Chicago, but it was pretty cool to see, Somebody desperately trying to get me, I think. But anyway, it was a good time. So what's up next for you guys then, Gary? What's on your schedule?
Well, I was hoping to do Block Island next week, but that's off my my plate. My next racing is going to be on Temptation, New York Yacht Club, Regatta, Waste Week, July 16th, 17th, 18th. I've got a couple 12-meter things coming up in the classics, Opera House Cup amongst them, so I look forward to that. And then most importantly, the Olympic Games, which I'll be covering for NBC from July 23 to about August 5th. I hope our team, the U.S. team, does well, but I think we'll see. I think they have their challenges.
The one final
Very-
note before we move on real quick, you mentioned at the front of this call about the double-handed discipline getting shelved. Can you give us the 30-second?
Yeah, so I'm quite distressed that the double-handed mixed offshore event, which was so promising, got nixed by the International Olympic Committee on June 8th. They had a vote and they decided instead to do a second kiteboard class. So in the 10 medals in the Olympics in Marseille in 2024, we're going to have 2 windsurfer classes and 2 kiteboards out of the 6 classes. I think it's a real shame because I think the long distance double-handed mixed event would have given a nice shot in arm of our sport, and it would have been exciting, and the tracking would have kept viewers and fans watching 24-hour time zones all around the world. And let's hope that the French do some kind of showcase or exhibition race, and that leads to something in Long Beach. But I was very disappointed that the IOC went in that direction.
Totally agree.
What do you guys think of how do we, as these sort of Olympic disciplines go more towards the wind water sports that are not sort of integrated with our traditional foundation of yacht clubs and sailing, community sailing centers and all this kind of stuff? Are we sort of, is our sport becoming disconnected from our Olympic pinnacle, you think? And how do we bring them into the fold in some way?
I'll speak first, but I'm interested in Jonathan's view. I mean, the premise of the Olympics is that you want to have sports that people are play. So in the sport of sailing, you want to have formats and classes that pretty much replicate the way the sport is played. Well, windsurfing, there's not a lot of regattas these days, and kiteboarding's cool, but there's not much going on. And yet at least half our races, take the NOOD in Chicago last weekend as example, at least half the classes that we race have keels on it. And there's lots of interest in long distance racing. Look at the turnout for the Chicago Max or the Bermuda race, or Annapolis Newport almost had a record attendance just last week, finished up in Newport. So to have 1 out of 10 medals for a long distance race seemed like it made sense. And while I was the one that shepherded that through, along with Stan Honey at World Sailing, the idea was not mine. It was Sherman Hoyt back in 1936 that had this vision to do a long distance race. And they resurrected that idea right after the 1960 games in Rome, that maybe we should do something. So the idea has been around for a long, long time. And we had a vote, 76% of the member national authorities at World Sailing voted in favor of it. And as you know, there's been a lot of growth in double-handed sailing in the last year and a half or 2 years in anticipation of this event. So I think it was a disappointment for our sport.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of politics in sailing, and in particular related to the Olympics is highly political. So that's just the fact. And the sailors and the sailing public is not always well served by those interests, in my view.
I mean, with the double-handed race, a young guy like Ed Baird could be back in the games and team up with a woman and do well. And I saw Ken Reed and Susie Leach, both veteran sailors, were doing really well in the double-handed. And, Ken wasn't born yesterday either, like the rest of us. But, it told you that you got a wider range of age and a wider range of size and the mixed gender, which Dave, you were pointing out is a nice trend that we're seeing in our sport these days. It just seemed like an opportunity lost. And Jonathan, you're right. I don't understand the politics of it. And there were only a couple individuals that fought hard against it and they prevailed.
What do you think, Ed? What's your take?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like Gary said, that, having the Olympics represent the sport rather than the sport represent the Olympics, that's the challenge. And certainly while, I mean, we go places all over the world and you see these amazing foiling kiteboards and all this stuff going on. But it's not the, high percentage of the sport at this point. Now, it may become that in 15, 20 years. But, there's a fair amount of people who probably roll their eyes and say, no, it won't. It's going to be a part of the sport for sure. But it's not going to be the sport. And, it's nice to have them represented. Absolutely. And it is a terrific challenge to go race kiteboards and to do it well, but is that sailing? It's a part of sailing. And do we get the right percentage? I don't know. It's hard to know.
Do we bring it? I mean, how do yacht clubs, how do you think you add that to your junior sailing program, or is it just, will always now forever be kind of disconnected from the other?
Well, it's actually, it's an interesting question because that's one thing that St. Pete Yacht Club is doing at the moment. They're very involved in kiteboard racing, but it is nothing to do with kiteboard racing out of the yacht club. Right. It's down the road at a different venue where it's easy to launch and all that kind of stuff. It's a city property. People just kind of come in and learn on their own and take lessons. It's just that the yacht club has people who are involved in helping to run the race, and there are yacht club members who are part of the kiteboard community. But it's not, they don't pack up at the end of the day and walk across the street to the tiki bar and share stories. It's a little different setup. So, we're trying to, as a group, we're trying to embrace the concept of it. But it's definitely, it's not it's not what the E-Scow is, which, is based in the yacht club, leave the boat on the trailer, come back and, and see your friends while they rig their boat up next door and you go out with your family and all that stuff. That's just a different experience.
Yeah. Well, sounds like we should all take some kiteboarding lessons. I don't know. I'm gonna try, if I go, I'm gonna
regular boat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the wing. I'm not gonna bother with the kite.
There you go.
That's my summer goal is to try the wing foiling. That seems to be a little more equipment friendly to me.
And you'll
become better at surfing in your big boat if you do that, and you feel the wave that much more. And you bet.
If I had one comment here, going back to the E-Scows after the regatta, I did a sit-down interview and recorded it with young Harry IV and his father, Harry Melges, who, great sailor. And they told me two really interesting things. One is, so young Harry's been sailing a 49er, doing fairly well. We don't have a team in the Olympics this time, but he's doing pretty well as a young guy. But he said that the 49ers really helped him with the E-Scow, and the E-Scows really helped him with the 49er. And then his dad added that they didn't put him through the Opti program or the Club 420 programs growing up. They kept him in skiff type boats or the Melges 15s and 20s and Sea Scows and things like that. And I found that really fascinating that, the kid's been in long courses and high performance boats. And he's really, to win the E-Scow Nationals, no small feat to say the least. So that really, I'm going to write an article about it, Dave, as you know, and talk about that more. But I found that fascinating how these skiffs, one helps the other.
Well, they foresaw the future, I suppose.
Well, part of that's got to be also that you gotta be involved in what's around and what's available in your area. And right here for our guys, it's small dinghies and kiteboards. And up in the Great Lakes, where the Melges family lives, and in the lake countries, there's a lot of scow sailing, so you should be involved. And but we can't do that down here. And for our guys, for instance, to sail skiffs down here, there just aren't any. So you got to do what you have, and then look for experience as you get a little older, right?
Yeah.
I think the idea that if you look at our very top sailors, almost all of them grew up with some sort of a technical class where it wasn't just, learning how to tack and jibe, that you also had to learn how to tune your boat and how to look after your boat and, to talk to your competitors about, where you're setting your shrouds and all those things. Those are such important skills as you get into the higher level.
No doubt about it. Got to be able to move your boat around and not have your coach do it for you, right?
Yes, there you go.
We should all be sailing RC boats then, Dave.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We did have the big Dragon Force. These were 65s racing at the Chicago Nude. It was pretty fun. Actually, and that brings me back to the funniest point of the entire regatta. So somebody convinced Morgan Larson, you guys know, is a pretty top level sailor, to jump in and use one of the Yacht Club RC fleet boats and do the racing for the night. I don't know, maybe set him on with a couple beers or whatever. But so Morgan walks up to the seawall and literally just chucks the boat in the water, and it must have been tuned perfectly. Sails were trimmed in, and it just just started sailing across the harbor. And I was happy to be sitting next to him, and he goes, "So how do I make this thing work?" He had forgotten to turn it on, first place. It never turned on the remote control either, and this thing just soared off into the horizon, and we had to go rescue it on a scramble. But anyway, it was like, nicely done, Morgan. Just the way he just launched it full, like as if he was throwing a dart into the water, was hysterical. So, see, even the smartest sailors on the planet have their moments, right, Jonathan?
That's pretty good.
For sure.
Boat control boat, don't turn it on.
You don't turn it on anyway. So, well, all right. So finally, Ed, what's up for you? We'll let you off the hook, and then before we get out of here, what do you got planned? What's the latest?
Well, I guess it's not that far until we're going to do the Chicago Mac race. So we got to make sure that we remember how to sail on reaches and things like that. So going to take the WindQuest team and, do a couple of days of just prep work with the offshore sails and the equipment that we use more in that sort of a race. And then I'm heading from that little training session going over to Sweden to race RC 44s. That'll wrap up the first week of July, and then we come back, and it won't be long till the Mac race happens.
There you go. All right, so a nice busy year for you then. That's things are back to
more so, for sure, more so. It's a shame still that the 52 events in Europe remain on the shelf, but they'll get there soon enough. And but like I say, seeing everybody up here in Chicago this past weekend, and all the different classes racing, all the boats on the water, it really is nice. And I again reiterate that the feeling all around from all the people that you talk with is just, wow, what a fantastic feeling it is to be back out together, racing these boats. Yeah. So good fun.
I think the same thing was happening here in Newport with the annual regatta, from we see with the pictures and videos that, it was gangbusters, and New York Yacht Club with their gigantic dinners, and it was Newport was alive and well. So Block Island Race Week next week for the lucky ones, and onward from there. So I'm headed down to Sayville, New York for the J24 North America Championships tomorrow, and we'll see how we go on that one.
How many boats do they have in that?
I think it was up to close to 30 last time I looked. So it's good. I've never sailed down there, and I've heard it's nice and flat. And it's going to be nice strong southerly. So it'd be a good workout for the old guys on the boat.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that my son Ty is going to be racing up there too. I know he's coming back up, and I don't think he's going to Block Island. I think he's going J24 with you. So look Excellent. For the tallest guy in the fleet. You'll see him.
All right, I'll go hunt him down then. All right, we'll see you next week then.
Thank you very much.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for doing it.
See you soon.
Yep.
Bye.